Okay, so we're back and we're looking at pretty this time. So we've obviously got princesses, kitty cats, fairies, and mythic horses. And we've actually got, I think I just realised this now, we've got 7 minions through. So only one action that we felt was good enough to come through. But
Oh,
we'll just
yeah.
dive straight into the first pairing here, which is Glimmer and Whiskers. So the Battle of the Power Fours. And we actually rank Glimmer higher than the king minion of the fairies, which I suppose tells us a little bit about how good we think Glimmer is.
Or how poor we
So,
think the fairies are.
well, true, yes. So who thinks that Whiskers is the number one here? Apart from the fact that it's got probably one of the best card arts in the game. Outside of that,
Fantastic card art. It is fantastic card art. Actually, we're going to talk about card art a few times today because I think the mythic horses look fantastic as well. Whoever designed all them, particularly the horse armor, which we'll get to in a bit. What's not to love about a steel-clad unicorn with a glowing horn? I mean,
is that based on the iPhone game? Do you not know what I mean? There's an iPhone game that you're a steel. It's called like Steel Robot Unicorn Dance or something. Super pretty mega unicorn.
Sounds like the sort
probably,
of thing
yeah. It
to
sounds
play,
like
mates.
Yeah.
It sounds like it is.
The whole soundtrack is just an Erasure song, just over and over again. It's really. I'll find it for you afterwards.
I've got no idea what it's
I'll find it for
based.
you afterwards.
I don't know. I don't know what it's based on. I just assumed it was like My Little Pony or something. I've got no
It'll be
real
based on
idea
that.
of what it's based on.
I'll look it up.
Yeah, go on then.
You-
Right, I'll start.
you guys carry
I'll
on.
start to go with. Okay, so my vote goes for Glimmer, but only because I'm trying to find the best card in Smash Up, and Whiskers is a very interesting card. I really quite like what it does, but I don't want to destroy one of my own minions, and I know I'm going to get flack for saying this, but played exclusively, that talent is actually quite dangerous because there's only really this and Ignobles where you're giving your minions to somebody else, or you're going to take somebody else's minions to become your own. And in that instance, yeah, it works, but only works with the mechanic of the faction, works really well with the mechanic of the faction. It's very clever in terms of its design, but outside of its faction, it doesn't really offer anything that I'm very excited to see. I don't want to destroy anything extra to play an extra action. I mean, all right, fine. It might pass you get to play terraforming twice sort of argument mark, but you still have to have terraforming twice to be able to do that. And frankly, it doesn't really blow my skirt up particularly. Glimmer isn't great. It's not. In fact, I think we're going to be saying that a few times tonight because a lot of these cards just aren't great. They're okay. There's some perfectly passable cards here. I think there's very clearly two obvious choices for the final, but yeah, I don't think either of those cards that we're looking at right now are those two cards. So
I mean, you wouldn't associate, or you wouldn't condone this behavior, Lee, but of course you can do your Whiskers combo with a minion that can't be destroyed and continually keep abusing the fact that you can't destroy it. And I know how much you don't like that sort of play, but
absolutely despise that.
You slap a warbot down and you can just keep on targeting that and get an extra action play every turn, so it just becomes an archmage at that stage.
Oh, I hate that so much.
Give it some body shots. Boom, boom, boom.
Yeah, put it through.
Listen, mad scientist. Thing is,
great.
This one is really this one is really close. It's a lot closer than I had initially thought, because I thought I was just going to go with Glimmer, but Whiskers is you pair it with something. Obviously, in the faction, it's great because the faction is designed to take control of your opponent's minions, so you can abuse that. But you can often get good pairings with this, where you will have a minion that can't be destroyed either through one of your actions or the minion text itself. So you can often just abuse Whiskers' ability every single turn, and it's just an Archmage, which we've talked about Archmage loads and how good that is, and even Archmage 2.0, the Solar Shout won one of these, so that is very strong. But then for me, Glimmer is also very, very good, and it has its advantages as well. As a baseline, it's a power 5 minion, so it comes down as a king minion in that slot basically. But the advantage is obviously you can drop a minion's power by 4, which that will target 90% of minions in the game. So all the minions will go down to 0 with the target of this. 90% of minions will go down to 0. That means it can play into lots of other things, so lots of other destructive effects. You can drop the power of bases on your opponent's turns. So they're not actually adding power, but then the power comes back on your turn, so you can break the bases on your turns rather than it breaking on their turns, which I think is really strong. So for me, I think this one's way closer than I had first thought. I would probably edge slightly more towards Glimmer than Whiskers, just because it's much more universal. You can use that talent every single turn, whereas Whiskers, you might not be using that talent every single turn, depending on how the faction's made up and all the rest of it, whether you can use it.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to get across. I'm trying to get across the point that actually Glimmer works universally is a good way of putting it, and Whiskers is very, very, it's specific. And even to get your dream scenario of annoying me till I want to never play the game again working, you still need to have specific setup cards to work it. And I would still argue strongly that it's not Whiskers that's being good there, it's the other card's ability to not be destroyed that's being good there.
I think you slightly overlook it. So that's an extra tangent that Matt brought up, where you can get the benefit without having to do the destruction. But the key to the cats is not only do you get the benefit, you destroy one of your opponent's minions. That is how it's meant to work. You're meant to take over your opponent, destroy them, and get the benefit. So the additional being able to use a talent when something can't be destroyed is an added bonus. I think both of these cards are very strong in a two-player game. I think they lose a lot of what they do when you try and expand that player count. You end up not necessarily knowing who to destroy with the cats. It's quite hard to actually keep that sort of control over what your opponent's doing, setting them back, destroy them while you're gaining. You want to be putting them back while you're gaining. And similarly with Glimmer, you want to be putting them down. Glimmer does work a bit more in some of the other factions, like Mark said, taking base down when you want it to be down. But if you can move that -4 around to whatever suits you best at the time in a two-player game, as well as Whiskers being so strong in a two-player control, there are a good number of control factions and destruction factions that have real strength in a two-player game. Dragons is fantastic in a two-player game. It's good in other player games as well, but Cats is another one. If you're basically just putting your opponent back to 0 power or no minions or something to that effect, but they do lose a lot outside of that. Because Glimmer is more universal, I'm going to go for Glimmer. But in a two-player game on its own, Whiskers is the stronger card. But I don't want to just look at that. I want to look at the whole game, and I think Glimmer has more versatility.
And I think Glimmer, as you say, it's a lot more versatile in that, for instance, you can drop a power 6 or power, you can drop Yokozuna down to power 2 and then easily just bop it with a destruction card, or you can maybe take control of it, or you can return it to hand or move it or whatever it might be. Well, not move it because obviously it's blocked for movement, but it just drops stuff into range where, so even if it's outside of the, even if it's 5+ power, it will drop that minion down into a range where other effects can actually, take effect. So like destruction, movement, etc., etc. So Glimmer is just incredibly versatile, and even if you're not destroying anything, just dropping a minion from power 4 to 0, so that they have no power until your next turn, so that your opponent effectively, maybe they can't break that base anymore, for example. So you get the control of base breaking, not just the, another effect that you might benefit from for destruction or whatever. So it's really close, this one, actually, but I would just slightly give it to Glimmer, just because of how how universal and how versatile that ability is, and as a baseline, it's a power 5 minion as the absolute minimum.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
I also agree.
But Whiskers is great. Don't get me wrong. I think Whiskers
looks great.
Oh, it's such good,
great.
Yeah, incredible art. Right. So,
should be a nice easy one to talk about this, shouldn't it, Luke?
How much discussion will be required here, I wonder? Let me guess, you think Starlight is the best minion in the game?
Oh,
can't be beaten by anything.
Can't be beaten by Eliza.
I mean, full disclosure, obviously anyone who's seen my Breaking the All-Star videos will know that I think Eliza is one of the best minions in the game, if not one of the best cards in the game. So I shall be strongly advocating for Eliza to win this, and I don't think there's anything on the screen that remotely even comes close to how powerful Eliza is. No matter what, Luke will I'm sure tell you about how good Starlight is, and then how good Glimmer is, and then how good the finalist is as well. But the ability of Eliza is just unbelievable. You know, there's so much stuff that this single card can hard counter any, you know, burst faction, any faction that doesn't even necessarily burst, but they just have loads of extra plays. You know, this card sets them back tremendously. It's so unbelievably strong, and it's just a one card counter to so many factions. And this is such a unique ability. You know, it's just so good. But I just can't see Eliza not winning this. So full disclosure, Eliza for me is the better card. I mean, Starlight, obviously, we mentioned last week about Mounty Major. Starlight is just the better Mounty Major, really, because it's the Mounty Major, but you have more control over it in that you can determine how many minions you've got on the base, and that's great. And Starlight will be it'll be an 8-power, 9-power minion, but in the same vein as Mounty Major and Kaijuki before it, it's a high floor and a low ceiling. It's just a strong, solid power gaining card, and that's about it. So for me, it's Eliza.
I feel like it's a higher ceiling than some of the other ones, but I do agree it's a good way of refining that card. I think again, and I'm going to say something that kind of contradicts almost what I've been saying for the last couple of episodes, but actually, I like Starlight in so much as it works really well with the faction, and so I kind of want to favour it more because I don't want Eliza to win, but I can't disagree. I really can't disagree. It's one of the first ever Smash Up games we all played together. You played a Princesses against me, Mark, and I will never forget the devastating effect that Eliza had on or against me whilst I was playing that. And that was the game, by the way, that you two were conversely trying to work out exactly which cards to play in order to make me not win. So, yeah, I'll never forget the role
right there.
That could be every game we've ever played.
Let's be honest, we've all been on the receiving end of one of those. So. Eliza was devastating in that game. That's the first time. I was early on in my Smash Up sort of playing, and it was the first time I'd ever seen Eliza, and she was absolutely devastating. She wrecked everything that I was trying to do. I couldn't put together a combo. I was completely stumped by her, and then I thought, oh, thank God she's got to the discard pile, and then he just whipped her out the discard pile and played it down again. Oh my God!
Yeah, I can't remember what I was playing, but it might have been zombies or something like that. But
can't remember what
if you can keep
it, the combo was.
Yeah, you should really be focusing on trying to get Eliza in play, and then keeping it in play, and then getting it back as quickly as possible. That's whatever pairing should be focused on doing one of those things.
My only problem with Eliza is, and Luke will appreciate this as well, to me, I get the super spy Vikings vibe from Eliza. She doesn't really do anything to help you win. She just stops other people winning, or she slows other people down. And I like that in some ways, and I dislike that in some ways. I think it's a really powerful ongoing play. It's just an immensely powerful action, talent, whatever it is, ongoing ability. Thank you is the word I'm looking for. Ability, yeah. It's Eliza through and through for me. It's an easy decision. As cool as Starlight looks.
I'm going to let you have this round, Mark, and save all my arguments to either the next round or the final. But I'm not going to make them now because I don't think Starlight is going to change either of your minds. I don't think I think it's a good minion, but it's King Rex plus a bit more, maybe. It's all right.
Full disclosure, I want you to convince me, Luke. I want you to. I know you've been working on
not yet.
Counter argument, mate. I know. Yeah, hold it.
I've got it ready. But
I'm excited.
I will.
I'm excited.
I'm going to save it for when it's against Glimmer or whatever happens on the other side.
As soon as
it's not going to be Glimmer that you're making the argument for, mate. It's going to be whatever's on the other side.
As soon as you even start to remotely string together a coherent argument against Eliza, I'll just be ending the call. There won't be any. We won't let that one out, I'm afraid.
Well, remember, he's only allowed to make one more extra point per turn, isn't he?
I will not be silenced. You will. I will go off in the comments if need be.
I'll just do a voiceover and make it look like you're talking.
Eliza is fine.
Right. Okay. So we're over to the other side of the draw here, probably the more competitive side of the draw. So we've got Queen Fluffy, which obviously we put in at number 1, and Snow White, the poorer cousin of Eliza. So who thinks it's a close one for me? So who wants to go first?
I'll go first on this one. So I think I actually ended up convincing myself that I preferred Snow White to Eliza, and that's when I started talking through what Snow White can actually do. When we started discussing it, it's very controlling what she does. It gives you the option to move your own minions to consolidate your power, but it also gives you the option to, if you want to, take any minions you want. If you want to put Snow White on a disadvantageous base or something that has effects when your minions move onto it, or something that genuinely minions don't want to be on, ninja bases or jungle oasis, it's horrendously controlling of that. You can have a real effect on the game if she's down and you just keep moving stuff away that doesn't want to be there. To the point where people don't want to play their minions down yet. They want to save them till you can actually choose. It's kind of a, okay, you put it down. No, we'll put him over here, or we'll move that. And you've got the easy route, which is consolidate your own power, but really you can control what other people are doing. And I think that has a huge effect on the game. You might want to, let's say you want to break a ninja base, move everyone's power, make them break it for you, and you come second for more points. And I think that's huge. I do like Queen Fluffy. I think she's part of what, as we've seen with quite a lot of these factions, the engine is in the Power 5 minion, and the engine combo of Whiskers and Queen Fluffy is what makes the cats go, along with some of the action cards they have to take control and do other things like that. So Queen Fluffy is a fantastic minion, but you need if you just take control of a Power 3 minion to the end of the turn, you might get a few ongoing abilities, but you're not going to get much out of it unless you can use the other cards to destroy and get the other benefits. So it's a good engine. Again, strong in 2-player games rather than 3 or 4. But I think Snow White is better because of how much she can affect the game, particularly in higher play counts.
Okay.
That's it, I finished. I realised I petered out a bit more than had I done finish, but I think yeah.
I agree. I agree with what Luke said. Snow White is better than Queen Fluffy. Again, I'm almost a bit saddened by some of these King minions. Again, they work fantastically well as the engine. Luke really eloquently put it, fantastically well as the engine for the driver of all of these factions. But take control of a Power 3 minion or less until the end of the turn, it doesn't blow my skirt up. It's not destroy everything in the entire base like Kaijuki or not Kaijuki. There goes Tokyo. It's not a big play, a big exciting play that's sort of a culminating part of the faction. And again, it does work. It works really well within the faction. It combos really well with something like Whiskers, but you need to set that up. And I'm looking for a card that is objectively good. Snow White is objectively good. I'm not entirely. I can appreciate that the control over any minion, the movement of any minion is quite good, and objectively has, again, its uses. You can use it to prolong the life of a base. You can use it to increase or decrease your power at a certain position, or strengthen your power at a certain position. But again, it's not really making me particularly excited about a play with that card. I'll be hard pushed to hear an argument of Snow White versus Eliza, Luke. In fact,
well, you're going to hear it.
I'm getting a sense that Luke is now putting all his eggs into the Snow White basket. So I'm starting to build up my case against Snow White. But I mean, Queen Fluffy works really well with Glimmer. I mean, we've obviously talked about Glimmer, and you can, with the Queen Fluffy Glimmer combo, you can literally take control of any minion in the game, probably. So that's a really good 2-card combo. But I mean, you said it yourself there. It relies on, it's the engine that feeds other things, and as a collective, that's very strong. And Queen Fluffy is certainly a major part of that. But for me, Snow White is the better minion here of the two. And one thing you didn't mention was obviously that the princesses are a very minion style faction, so they rely on Snow White's talent to actually either converge onto one base to get first place, or to, as you've said, move others to then get a very cheap second place, which potentially could be more points than the first place. So Snow White is the big enabler for that, but I don't think it's flawless, as Luke, as I'm sure will say that it's the best minion in the entire game, or he'll make the case for it. But yeah, I think in this instance, as much as I like Kitty Cats, they're certainly one of my favourite factions. It's Snow White for me.
It should also be considered that really Snow White lived with 7 dwarfs, whereas Eliza controls Frost. And let's be honest, everyone wants to build a snowman. So,
whoa, whose side are you on?
Oh, Joel, I mean, just talking Disney, mate. Just talking Disney.
I've never seen Frozen, so I can't.
Snow White's one of the OGs. She was one of the originals.
She was one of the originals, but old is not necessarily better, is it?
Well, Anna's the real hero in the Anna and Elsa story. She actually saves the day every time. Don't get me started on actual Frozen.
We've both got daughters the same age.
It would have been funny to not tell anybody that, though, and let them think that I watched Frozen in my spare time.
I felt like I just had to put it out there, though.
So we struggled to put a second fairy card through. We were really struggling to think of which one was there anything even remotely as good as Glimmer. So we settled with Titania, but I think I'm setting up for me, it's certainly Super Future Space Armor Power, because that is the big Mythic Horse, and any faction really, any faction in combination with Mythic Horses is your big multi-base break card. And I think people maybe underestimate how good this card actually is. Every minion that is on a base with another minion of yours gets +2 power. So for loads of minions, that'll be doubling its power. So all your power 2s, but +2 power for every minion is insane. That's such a big power boost. If you've got, 3 bases with 3 minions on them each, that's, +6 on each base. And that could very feasibly break all 3 bases. And you really want to be setting this up for the multi-base break. So for me, this is a no-brainer. And it's great in Mythic Horses. Obviously, they converge. It lets them get a very cheap base break from not very many minions. But you can then legitimately spread out and do a multi-base break with this card. And it's this card that enables that. So for me, and actually it's +2 power until the end of the turn as well. So if you combo it with something like a first mate, you can keep all that power on your first mates and keep on breaking bases. So for me, it's definitely Super Feature Space Armor Power, and Titania's good. And obviously, if you've got your Spirit of the Forest out of the Titan, you can use both effects. And on a base, for instance, that could be a 10 power swing or something. It could be quite a big swing to return a minion and play extra minion, and that's not capped to any particular base. You can do that anywhere, but it's just very, we talked about underwhelming, well, you mentioned underwhelming king minions there. It just feels fair. There's nothing, okay, you've got an option, so it's versatile. It's got a couple of things you can potentially do, but it feels like a fair card. It doesn't feel like a game-breaking card, this one, to me.
Compare this to Yokozuna that we were looking at last week, right? So Yokozuna had options, but all of the options were viable or things that you really wanted to do. And to be fair, both of these are as well. But neither of these options are particularly as exciting as I think any of the options that Yokozuna had. So to me, it's a no-brainer. It's Space Armor Power for me. And again, I said right early on that I think there's 2 cards that have the potential of winning. For me, the second card is up on the screen for us there. That plays so into my wheelhouse of my play style, of my game style. It pairs with all of the factions that I absolutely adore playing, things like Musketeers, for example. That is like the chain of command for cards where you've +1/+1/+1 because you keep attacking the same minion with extra actions that you've been able to put down, and all of a sudden you've got, oh, and by the way, now I've got all that extra power. There's another 2 more for absolutely everything that's going on. It works really, really well in its faction, but also it is an objectively brilliant card outside of it. I mean, any faction would appreciate that particular card being played down on it, apart from maybe Dinosaurs, because Dinosaurs suck at getting cards out. So you want something that's got a few minions out. But again, all of the factions that I like to play like to be able to put down a load of minions and then dump some power on top of them. So yeah, it plays so far into my wheelhouse. That's the other card that I'd be considered voting for the end of this.
Anything to say on Titania?
For me?
Well, Lee, I don't think you even mentioned it, did you?
Oh, it's crap. No, move on. No, it's not. Again, I'll justify that. I'll justify that. To be fair, I don't think it's bad. I don't think it's a bad card. But I said this in the last video. When I say that a faction isn't very good, I'm not saying that the actual faction isn't very good, because they're all good in their own way and they all play into a certain different play style. But it's not my play style at all. Fairies is not my play style at all. I did try them. I tried them a few times. I think I made some mistakes in pairing them, and I think I paired them with leprechauns once, and I was just doing the same thing round and around and around, and it was just like quite a boring game. So again, they've got some good actions and they've got some utility and some versatility, but I'm not excited to play them at all. Whereas Mythic Horses and that particular card, I'm excited to play that. I'd play Mythic Horses so that I get a chance to drop that card somewhere in the middle of a game and get a bit of excitement of being able to potentially, like you said, Mark, break 2 bases in one go, which is always I mean, if you can do something like that with one card, you do something like that with one card.
Yeah, it feels Titania feels like a bit of a strange design to me. I know that fairies are a bit are meant to be kind of a jack of all trades sort of faction, but they focus on reducing the power of minions and playing and moving play on minion actions around. And this card does neither of those things, so it just feels like a bit of a strange.
Yeah, we ran out of things to
throw
say.
King
we'll
minion into the faction.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll give it a little bit of extra minion play, perhaps.
It feels like it should maybe have something like, for each opponent, they can either choose to discard a couple of cards, similar to like a Madness style thing, where they can discard some cards from the hand, or you can, for each one, you can play an extra minion who doesn't, or something like, I don't know what it might be, but it just feels like a very strange design for this card. And maybe it's just because they wanted something that will play, a general all-round kind of faction.
I think Titania is quite good, actually. I know it. If you remove,
he's backing it to beat Eliza. This is it. This is the play.
Have we ruined this? Have we ruined this thoughts?
No, Super Future Space Armor Power's going through it, but I think you're being quite unfair to Titania there. I think anytime you can play an extra minion, that is good. Straight up. Is it as good as another King minion in the game? No, I don't think so. But anytime you can play an extra minion, that's an uncapped extra minion. You could put down both King minions in the same play. That's a 10 power drop. Then, if you've got Spirit of the Forest out, returning a minion to its owner's hand, that could be their King minion. That could be a 15 power swing on a base. If you're doing both, I think all of a sudden she is quite strong. I think it is quite a big swing. You could use your extra minion as Glimmer, drop their power by 4, use your Spirit of the Forest to also return a card to the owner's hand. I don't know if you're necessarily gaining there because you still need to break the base, but you could raise your own power by 9 and drop their power by whatever minion you put to their hand and the -4. That could be an 18-point swing. That's an unlikely scenario, but then so is breaking 2 bases in one turn with the robot armor. So I think Super Future Space Armor Power, I'm going to say its full name every time, is better than Titania. But I do think you can see where this card fits in the early evolution of the game. They were trying some stuff out, and that Awe power being able to be activated by the Spirit of the Forest does make this card good. I think they realised that they sort of gave it 2 relatively weak abilities and went, all right, well, you can just use both. I think that fixes it. I think that makes it good again. But having said that,
you shouldn't need the Titan to do that. If it said return a minion and play an extra minion,
yeah, I agree.
I'd be very happy with that. Yeah, that would be a much better King minion. But
I think they should have written that from the beginning.
I agree.
Yeah,
they've wasted the Titan as well, because there's not many cards outside of the fairy factions that has that capital Or. There's loads of cards there's not loads of cards. There's cards that have the lowercase Or, and it doesn't work with those. So they've really wasted the chance to put in more cards into their game that would have some kind of synergy with the fairy faction and actually using the Titan, because you use the Titan just to use the fairy cards, a better version of each fairy card. Whereas, they've wasted the chance of some great pairings in the future by just not putting capital Or in.
It is a good Titan though, and it does make the fairies quite an exciting faction to play because you do get to do an awful lot. It makes them a little bit more like wizards. You get a chance to play extra actions loads of times, but they actually feel like, all right, I don't know, whenever I've played it, I feel like I'm actually accomplishing something as well. So when I've played with the Titan, it does kind of make it better, but yeah.
Just before we move on, I've looked up that game. It's called Robot Unicorn Attack.
Robot Unicorn Attack.
You're a robot unicorn. You're flying through space. It's made by Adult Swim, who wrote Rick and Morty.
Okay.
All right.
And it's got this song "Always" by Erasure in the background, and it's the most perfect unicorn song you ever have in your life. It's just on a loop, and it's so mesmerizing. You can it's one of those endless games where you die, you start again.
I don't know what the song goes like. Could you sing a little bit for me, please?
I absolutely cannot. But I tell you what. If Eliza doesn't win, I'll sing "Always" by Erasure.
Is that what
it's quite high, it's quite high pitched. It's not in my wheelhouse, I'll be honest. But if Eliza doesn't win, I'll sing it.
Is that what they ripped off then? Does it look like the Mythic Horses cards?
Yeah. It was that robot one. It's not doesn't look like any others necessarily. But I feel like that is based on that game. I could be wrong, but I believe it is. It's a lot of rainbows and it's a robot unicorn in it.
Should we go to? I need to do a new meeting actually because I didn't think this would last longer than one meeting.
Yeah.
Okay.
The longest bit still to come.
No, we've got a relatively quick period next.
No, absolutely.
Probably another 5 minutes or so, I reckon.
You're not going to make the argument for Glimmer, are you? Surely you're not.
I might do. I need to decide which one of
which one's got the best chance.
Super robot power is going to give me the greatest side.
The only one that you're going to convince me on is super robot space armor power.
Okay, consider it in the final.
The only one that you could convince me on, Luke, would be Snow White.
Yeah, but I'm easier to
I'm not going to change your mind. I need my floating vote. I need Lee.
Well, the only one you can convince yourself on is Glimmer. So you're gonna have to make the choice.
I know. I can convince myself on Snow White.
There seems to be some mistake.
You absolute snake.
What's up?
The straight face is excellent, Mark. Well done.
What's the matter?
Unbelievable.
Right,
I thought it felt like a short 40 minutes.
Right, we're ready to restart then, do you reckon?
Yeah, I'm ready when you are, mate.
Okay, cool. All right then. Well, I think you guys know where I'm going with this. Is that Eliza is the better of the two here. Are you going to make your last stand now, Luke?
I don't know really, because a lot of I've got two arguments on Eliza. One is slagging her off, basically. I'm just going to slag her off for 10 minutes. But the other thing is I also need it to be going against a card that I have some plausibility of convincing you is good at the same time. And I don't think that is Glimmer.
I'm telling you now, it's not.
Yeah, I do like Glimmer, but I don't think it affects the game as much as Eliza does. So I'm gonna once again retreat into my hole for another round.
When you see that, do you think Pikachu? Those little bird things.
Yeah, a little bit.
Whenever I see that, that's all I think. Lee, are you going to make a stand, or do you agree with Eliza?
Mate, I'm with you until told otherwise. So
nice. You don't want this to be the one that Luke finally wins, do you?
Oh, don't bring that.
We might have got you there.
You don't want to be on the wrong side of history.
That is so mean. That is so mean, that Mark. It's so mean.
He's manipulating you,
isn't he?
Don't fall for it. He's using our rivalry against us.
Right. So this is the good semi-final here, really. I think. Certainly a close one. Anyone
it's not for me. It's not too close for me. Again, I think the talent is particularly good, but for me, that action is universally great. And it works, again, probably because I'm biased towards my own personal play style, but universally, great action beats okay or above average minion any day of the week as far as I'm concerned. So for me, the argument is super future space armor power.
Yeah, it's like playing down 2 rotary slug throwers, or maybe even more, depending on how many bases you're trying to go for. And we know how good an action rotary slug thrower is. That +2 power for every minion there is unbelievable. And I completely agree. I think Snow White is a good minion. I think they could have made the talent better in that they could have just made it move a minion from one base to another rather than having move a minion from another base to here. It doesn't even let you move it away, so it doesn't even say move the minion from another base to here or from here to another base. Like it's just one-way traffic, and I think that does limit how good it can be. I mean, it is good for the reasons that you set out, but you're pretty much doing the same thing each time. You're putting on a base that you're either trying to get a very cheap second place for, which is very effective at doing, or you're trying to converge a few of your minions to concentrate on getting first place on a very attractive base for you. So it's good, but I think for me, Super Future Space Armor Power is just, it's a very, very strong action in the game. And most factions will benefit from something like that because most factions, apart from maybe like Kaiju, who don't have many minions, would have a situation where they're playing several of their minions down across multiple bases, and this card could mean that they could break them or that they could win, comfortably get first place on both of them as well, or multiple bases. So for me, it's Super Future Space Armor Power.
Subsap.
I think Snow White is better. I've already lost this one, obviously, but I think there's so many different ways to use her. And the third one is there are minions on the field that you might just want rid of. And okay, ignoring the victory points, they might try and strand them on a base, and all of a sudden they're now being part of the base's scoring. So you've got moving minions to inopportune bases that they don't want to be on, ninja base, etc. You've got taking their minions to add into your power for a cheap second place. You've got combining all your power using your own minions to try and break the base. And you've also got removing their minions off the field for stuff that can't be destroyed or is particularly sticky. Or let's say you wanted to get rid of, you were playing against somebody in this dream scenario that has Eliza, and you want to remove her off the board, pull her to the base, get her scored off there. So I think Snow White there's at least 4 uses there, and there's probably more.
I think maybe you're overstating that use though, in terms of, because I think a better way of doing that is just to break the base that it's on, and Super Future Space Armor Power does that better than Snow White would. And there are quite a few cards that either can't be affected by other players' cards, or that just hard counter movement. And obviously, like Yokozuna last week, for instance, all of that faction's minions couldn't be moved by other players' minions. So, any pairing that is in, but then you've got Polynesian Voyagers and the Moai, you've got other cards as well. There's quite a lot of cards that say they protect minions from anything. And there are also ones that do have specific movement blocking as well. So you say there's lots of uses. I think there's a few uses, but I think it's all.
Well, I just gave you 4.
Yeah, but I'm saying I think Super Future Space Armor Power is a, in terms of getting rid of problematic minions, I think the better way is just to break the base. And Super Future Space Armor Power and Mythic Horses, as a collective, very easily can do that and get rid of problematic minions. They can't, however, do it if Eliza's in play. And I think,
we'll take it through.
Happy to lose the semi-final to win the final.
Why can't they do it? Why can't they do it if Eliza's in play?
Well, Mythic Horses, they have a lot of extra plays, don't they? So you've got to wait a lot longer. You've got to wait a lot longer to do that play.
Play your minion, play your extra minion, play your action. There's 3 cards. Minion, action. 3. That's just a little teaser of my argument for the
final. Oh dear.
Well, I just want to remind Lee that his unblemished record of 9-0 is on the line here.
Are we really? Are you and I 9-0?
No,
I think you're the only one 9-0.
Am I 9-0?
I think you're the only one who's won every week.
How does that make any sense, though?
Interesting.
Because either he's been paired with me or he's been alone, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, but that's going to happen again this time, because I'm going to do one side, you're going to do the other, and he's going to pick the winning vote.
Yeah, but then he would be 9-1 against you, or 10-1 against you.
It's everyone against me. What's the pattern?
Well, you should like better. If you like
10
better
it's
cards,
either-
you'd win more, wouldn't you?
It's
10 and
either
1's
me
not as good
against
as 10 and 0.
Yeah.
it's either me and Mark against and Lee decides, or it's
very easy.
me
really.
against Lee and Mark
You
decides.
need
So.
to- if you liked better cards, you'd win more. Simple as.
No.
Right, go on then, Lee. You give us your
At the
arguments.
risk of alienating my swing voter, really. No. Right.
Give us your arguments against Eliza then. Let's hear them.
So, my argument against Eliza, there's a few, and I'll try and make sure I cover them all because she's bad. She's real bad, guys. I don't know if you
One of the
know
worst
this,
minions in the entire game.
She's real bad.
She's going to make the worst
Look at her.
minions tournament.
So, part of my problem with Eliza is, okay, she does have some effect on factions that chain minion plays, okay? But there's a lot of factions that are happy to pay 3 cards a turn and still use that to good effect. There are some cards that don't play more than 2 cards a turn and still can use that to good effect. So I think you're over against something like robots. She can shut robots down, fair. But even cards like zombies, you can play 3 cards a turn and still have a great game. You could play robots 3 cards a turn and still have a good game. So if it was play 2 cards a turn, I think she's real strong. But there are plenty of factions that play 2 cards a turn. The 1 extra card, you're only stopping the factions that can play loads and loads and loads of cards.
Do you want me to counter after each of your points? Or do you want me to make?
No.
Want to make all of them, and then I'll counter all of them. Is that
how
do you want this format to work?
I'd like to make all of them. Then you can make what counters you want to make, and then hopefully you'll have forgotten some of the points I've made. And then
I'm gonna write these down as you're saying.
Well, you might as well do it one at a time. Then No, I want to do all mine in one go.
Okay. So yeah, that one was about extra cards, factions. Factions.
There aren't that many, and have a think of them if you want while we're here. Factions that really, really reliably play more than 3 cards a turn.
I think
real chain minion plays.
I think you're looking at
next
that
argument.
Okay. Well,
next argument.
Go on then. I've got one on the list. So
let's keep this train rolling.
My other problem with her is within her role in the princesses. The princesses are not a good faction in general. So in order to get what you would deem to be the reward of Eliza, you have to cut yourself down a long way. You are not getting a lot of good stuff out of this faction. Snow White's good. Your Princess Short video pretty much covered it. It's Eliza and Snow White. Maria de Grau's okay, but it's nothing special. You've got fewer minions. Okay, yeah, the power 5, but you don't have many ways to draw. So the actual princesses aren't supporting what she does well. She'd be if this was a normal distribution faction of power 4s, power 3s, power 2s with Eliza as the king minion, you've got a real chance at something good there. But she's the lone good card in her faction, really, give or take the Happily Ever After and Snow White. Really, she has to do a lot of the heavy lifting. So if you're going against robots, you go, right, I'll pick Eliza because it shuts the robots down. I'll pick Eliza because it shuts robots down. You're not doing a right lot else in the rest of the game just to shut robots down. So you're not gaining any ground. You're just stopping us absolutely going off with robots in a single turn. So that was part of my argument I've done before, which you're not necessarily helping yourself. You're just slowing other people down a little bit. My third argument is if you're in a high player count game and you're playing against factions where they want to chain plays, they're going to come after Eliza. That's just a fact. I've seen you play Eliza, and I think you put in Corporal on there. Does that mean you can't be destroyed or affected? Or
you can't be affected, I think it is, isn't it?
One of the ghost cards that made her basically very hard to get rid of, you put in Corporal on it, I think it was. But if you're playing a 4-player game and it's advantageous for every player to play more than 3 cards a game, they're just going to come after her, score the base, and get rid of her.
Slowly.
Is that because it's one of the best cards in the game?
No, if you're playing against a card that's slowing your game out, there's a bit of a personal vendetta against. I've seen it, but what that does is that it unites the other players against you, which is what you'd never want in Smash Up. Right, lads, let's get rid of Eliza. But once she's gone, she's quite hard to get rid of, particularly within the princesses. And then you're not stopping anything. You're not stopping any of the chain plays that you've previously been trying to stop. So they're my issue. Now, we can argue whatever you want about Super Future Space Armor Power. You've already made your own arguments for why that card's good. So we've got those in the bank. They're safe. Right. So remember those, why you like Super Future Space Armor Power. But they're the reasons why I think Eliza is bad. I think she does counter some factions really well, but the vast majority of factions are okay with playing 3 cards a turn. And the fact that people want to get her off the base if it suits them to do so. So it unites all the other players. And the princesses are just not a good enough faction to support that blocking mechanic. They can't get her back out if she goes off the field, and they don't do a right lot else around her. So it's heavily relied on what you pair with her to do a lot of the heavy lifting. And that's just a nice additional card to maybe slow the game down a bit. But how many turns can you keep her on the field for? How many turns can you actually slow your opponents down by? That's it. That's all I've got. I'm done.
Only three negatives.
4, I think that was, wasn't it?
I think you bundled in maybe 2 into the princess faction and into the actual faction itself, maybe. I've only got 3 and then 1 sub-bullet point here. So
these positives are counters.
I was expecting you to have more negatives for Eliza, really.
Well, you can list your own. I think in the spirit of fairness, you can list your own negatives if you want.
I'll go through your list, shall I, in terms of why I think you maybe misjudged it. So in terms of some of the factions not having extra cards, you're right in that some factions don't have extra plays. And if you're playing a combination that doesn't have extra plays, you're playing very, very slowly. So that's what you want. I think you maybe, it's not necessarily about hard countering those factions that have extra plays. So it is absolutely devastating against those factions that do have extra plays. So robots, zombies, mythic horses, because they have to massively tone down what they're doing. They have a blocker on what they're doing. But it's not about necessarily doing that. It's more about slowing the game down to a certain pace. And princesses and any pairing princesses, they want to play at a certain pace. And Eliza controls the pace of the game. And if you can you set the whole pace of the game, that's an incredibly strong thing to do. So it's not just about hard countering certain factions, and it hard counters quite a few factions. There are a lot of factions that will string more than 3 cards together in a turn. It's not just necessarily about that. It's more about controlling the tempo of the game. And actually, if everyone's playing at your pace, that's a very strong thing to do because you set the pace of the game. As I say, princesses, they're not necessarily a power faction. They don't burst or anything like that. So they want a slow pace of the game to then build up their tempo and win the game. So you can reliably pair princesses up with any faction that wants to play slower and actually has a longer term. So an Uber Serum game plan, Mad Scientist, where they're building up a big jacked up, whatever it might be. This allows them to actually execute that game plan. Whereas if you're playing against something that's fast, like Robot Penguins or something like that, where they're blitzing loads of bases very quickly and you don't even get time to respond in the game, this slows the pace of the game down. And I think that's what makes Eliza very strong. It's not just about hard countering certain factions. It does that very well. And it's particularly dangerous against those factions, but it just slows everything else down and you set the tempo of the game. So I think that on the first point there, yes, okay, if you're playing giant ants and dinosaurs and they have no extra plays, Eliza doesn't do anything against that faction. But actually, if you're playing against that faction, they're playing at a slower pace than you anyway. So that's not necessarily a bad thing. And if you're playing giant ants, dinosaurs, you're going very, very slowly, even slower than any princess pairing. And that runs the risk of losing the game just on the back of that alone. So I think it sets a certain pace of the game and everything has to play at that pace or below. Nothing can play faster than that. And I think that's the power. It's not just about hard countering one thing. In terms of the role in the princesses, I quite like the princesses as a faction as a whole, but I completely agree in terms of the faction itself not necessarily being very strong. We mentioned Snow White, Eliza, and Maria de Graw. They're like the 3 best ones, certainly. And Eliza is far and away the best of the bunch. And maybe if they were a different structured faction with Eliza as the head, then it would be a more powerful faction. But I don't think you can really put the power of the faction against Eliza. They do have ways to shuffle in. They've got something back to sequel DVD or something like that. I can't remember what the name of the card is, but you can shuffle a minion back in and draw a card. So they do have some recursion for Eliza. But yes, the faction itself isn't necessarily brilliant. And often you'll be pairing it with something to try and find Eliza quickly, whether that's, Star Roamers and playing your ship's captain to get Eliza, or having a faction with lots of draw and drawing through to find Eliza. That's what you'll be doing. You'll be pairing into, you pick princesses for Eliza. And actually that's a good point as well, actually, in terms of, we talked about like Invader, for example. You pick the aliens to play the invaders. That's why you're picking aliens. You pick princesses because of Eliza. You're not picking princesses because of Sleeping Beauty, and you're not picking princesses because of Snow White. You're picking princesses because of Eliza. That's how good that card actually is. It is the focal point. It's such a unique, interesting ability. In terms of people coming after you, that's actually quite hard with Eliza, because they can only play one extra card in a turn. You can't necessarily just string a whole load of things together. If you're playing Eliza and you've dropped Eliza on a base, it will get back round to you again, because the limitations on their turns means that they can't necessarily break that base before it comes back around to you. And then you can just move Eliza away potentially, or do something else with Eliza and keep it in play. So actually the Eliza helps prevent the base it's on being broken, because they can't just burst down and rush that base by the limitations that Eliza creates. So I think in terms of people coming after it, and I think people coming after it because it is the best card in the game, and they don't want, because it has such a detrimental effect on their strategy, they don't want Eliza in play. That's how good the card is. It's the fact that it's a big target is testament to how good Eliza is. So I think that one doesn't necessarily work as an argument against Eliza. And just one thing we didn't mention as well is that it's other players can't play more than one extra card per turn. So if you're breaking a base on your turn and someone's playing Spider-Verse, they can only play one special. They can't play multiple specials, because that would count as more than one extra card on a turn. So it counts as specials as well. It's not just phase 2 plays. It's someone who's playing ninjas and they try and play Shinobi and Hidden Ninja. They can't do that. They can't even play Hidden Ninja, because Hidden Ninja into another card would be more than one card. So they would have to play just one Shinobi. So it works on specials as well when it's outside of players' turns. So I think that's another big boon for Eliza. And for me, in terms of saying it all there, it's just such a good card. I mean, I can't see there isn't a universe where Eliza doesn't go through to the Champion of Champions tournament, because it could feasibly win that as well. That's how good this ability is. And it's great in the faction. It's the best card in the faction. And any faction, absolutely any faction, would love Eliza in the faction.
I think it is easy to target her down playing only one minion, because if you're playing a 4-player game and all 3 of the other players are coming after it, that's 9 cards to break a base, plus she's adding 5 power to it. So let's say the base is 21 as a generous base. You only need 16 from 3 people. It's not, I don't think that's that difficult from 9 cards.
That relies on them having an extra minion play each, though. Not every faction has extra minion plays.
Okay, but realistically, you can get rid of her in 2 turns. And that...
But that's the thing, though. You can't... If you're gonna get rid of a problem minion like that, you have to do it before it gets back round to their turn. So you can't give them another turn to then do something else and move Eliza away potentially, because you've wasted that chance to actually get rid of it. So you have to do it in that turn when it's not. So if I play Eliza down, you then have to do it between the 3 of you before it comes back around to me again. And I don't think that's reliable enough to do with one extra play.
No, but you might only have her out. What I'm saying is, there's a chance she can only be effective on the game for a very short period of time, because she's creating a target on the back for certain factions. So I've seen that happen. As much as I've seen you shut down Lee's strategy of the robot zombies or whatever it was, I've also seen her get headhunted. I've seen a game where you played and your sole focus was to try and get Eliza out and protect her. And every time she came out, she was straight off the field. Yeah, she didn't impact the game. And you were exactly right. You want to play slow, and other factions play fast, and you want to keep the game slow. But if you can't keep her in play, you get outrun, you get overtaken, and there's no way back.
You pair into that though. and that's where you really major on that specific element. As I say, you don't play princesses because of anything other than Eliza. You pick princesses for Eliza, and for that reason, you're picking your partner faction to really double down on that particular aspect of it. And I think in terms of, go on, Lee. Sorry, you haven't said anything yet.
Sight of what we're supposed to be doing.
I don't think we have. I think
both of those. I think both of the positives and negatives there were.
We've had a really good strong debate. But and now it's up to
Luke decided last week that he didn't want Eliza to win. So it didn't really matter what card was up against Eliza. He didn't really want Eliza to win.
Yeah, you haven't actually
Nothing has been said about
I think she's the most I think she's the most overrated card in the game.
Right, but she's better than every other card on this field.
Not necessarily. I don't really care for Super Future Space Hammer cards.
Right, so what have we wasted 20 minutes for?
Listen. But you guys do.
I've been listening.
You guys do like that card. So
right,
I'm asking you to rely on your previous positives for that card. I'm not going to make any arguments for that card because I don't believe in it. So that's not fair. But I'm asking you guys to rely on your previous positives for that card and apply them to the negatives that I've applied to Eliza. That's all I'm saying. I think she's overrated. I think
noted.
I don't think she's bad, but I think she's overrated.
Noted. She's won.
Okay, thanks.
I think.
Okay, goodbye.
I thought of that logging off there as well, just mic dropping and going at the end of that, but no. She's got a unique ability, and she's really interesting. And out of the two of these cards, I really like Super Future Space Armor Power, but I think Eliza has hurt me too many times in the past to not be declared a really good card. I know the games that you're talking about, Luke. There's been a game where we've played against Mark using Eliza, where we've smashed Eliza every single time it's come out, but only because we happen to have had the cards that let us do that. If we didn't have the cards to let us do that at that time, there'd have been a chance where Mark would have been able to save her a little bit more. Plus, she came out 2 or 3 times in that game, and every single time we target her down. If you target a card down, it's a really good card. How can you not be putting a card like that through?
I think it's. I mean, I do like Super Future Space Armor Power. It is a very good finishing card.
Great, good dreamer card. Works really well in my playstyle as well. Eliza doesn't really work particularly well into my playstyle because I like to have lots of additional plays.
I'm just thinking. I'm thinking as well. I completely think. I completely agree that Eliza is the best card on the screen, and I think if we were to put. I'm thinking about the future now in terms of the champions as well. Like, could Super Future Space Armor Power beat Yokozuna, and could it beat Invader, and could it beat Herr Doctor, and could it be Great Worm?
No, it couldn't.
The only thing, Eliza's the only one that could even come close to me on those cards.
Well, I think Luke's argument is going to be better weighted when there's a Wyvern in front of me.
Yeah, I think there's a better case for another card beating Eliza. I think Super Future Space Armor Power is good, but Eliza is for me, it's far and away the best card in the expansion. And there's a better case. If it was Eliza against Invader, I would very strongly consider your argument, Luke, in terms of why Eliza is not the better card in that pairing. And whether it's Eliza against Great Worm or Eliza against something else, you might be able to convince me or Lee otherwise. But in this contest, there's nothing in this expansion that even comes close to Eliza. It's just that good.
And it is unique, and the fact that it's unique is what makes it really interesting. It's the card that I would want to play the princesses for. And I think we've all said multiple times, multiple different things, that Eliza is the better card, unfortunately.
Yeah, if you ask any Smash Up player who's played Smash Up a decent number of times, name a card from the princesses faction, they'll say Eliza. And well, apart from Elum, which is clearly a big miss from this slide. I know we didn't put it on, but. It's just an iconic, powerful card, and it's the card that people associate with princesses because it's just that good. And there's nothing really that comes close to it. And as I say, for me, it's gonna get a run for its money in the Champion of Champions, but not in this bracket.
It's not going to get very far.
I mean, it makes the Champion of Champions tournament just kind of. I don't know how we're going to ever reach an agreement on the winner on that. That's going to be so difficult.
Oh, it's going to be so shouty.
The stuff that we put through, it's going to be incredible. But
there goes Tokyo. Spoilers.
Oh yeah, I completely forgot about that as well.
I'd rather have Eliza than There Goes Tokyo.
We've broken Luke. We've broken him. It's because that twitches.
If Eliza comes up against There Goes Tokyo at some point in the tournament, it's going to be a very difficult call for me. Easy. Like you could very easily convince me one way or the other on that, Luke.
I will. I'll smash Eliza to pieces.
You'll be going for Eliza in that, won't you, Luke? There Goes Tokyo.
Maybe.
Eliza.
Maybe.
Yeah. I think even from what we put through, the weakest thing we put through is Solar Shard, probably. And even that's pretty good.
Well, Archmage but better.
Oh yeah. Okay, so we're wrapping this one up. Yeah, nothing more to say. I think it's a worthy winner, and I think it was an outcome that I was expecting and certainly hoping for. And you put up a valiant effort there, Luke, but it didn't convince me, I'm afraid.
No.
Maybe you can convince me in the Champion of Champions. As I say, if Invader comes up against it, I'm all ears.
In the words of better cards.
In the words of Lee, after I just made my very long, passionate, heartfelt argument, no.
I think
it wasn't passionate. You were passionate about hate for Eliza. You weren't passionate about your love for Super Future Space Armor Power.
Certainly not passionate anymore, that's for sure.
Right, it's gone. Bye, passion. Goodbye.
Yeah.
I think we'll wrap it up there then. And thank you all very much for watching, and thank you for joining us. And let us know if you think Eliza shouldn't have won this, but I think it should be fairly unanimous in the comments, I would have thought. But with that being said, we'll see you all in the next one.